Hi class. So today I'm gonna go through around 20 slides, something that we covered and you guys missed. So basically there's gonna be like a review, but I'm gonna go through certain things that I'm not gonna be very specific on because you already took the chemistry class. So, but still, I have to go through certain material. We have different types of energy, right? So there's a kinetic energy and there is a potential energy. So the kinetic energy is energy in action when the molecules are moving, let's say, and the potential energy, it is a stored energy. So this right now has a potential energy, right? This energy doesn't really go anywhere, but if I will let this go or I will drop it, now it has a kinetic energy, right? So potential and kinetic energy. So energy can be transformed for potential energy, again, from potential energy to kinetic energy. Now, this object that is on the floor, right? Let's say it's on the floor, it has a potential energy. Potential, boom, it's kinetic, and then it becomes potential energy. So stored energy can be released. That will result in action. Great example on this would be a food. So when we are digesting, let's say carbohydrates, right? So carbs are plant products, and carbs are made of glucose molecules. So this is a polysaccharide, let's say. So this has a potential energy. So when we're eating that, when we are digesting, by digestion I mean that when our body breaks down molecules, our body is able to separate these glucose molecules so we can absorb them. So we can absorb them into our blood. But before we absorb them, we need to break down these glycosidic bonds, these bonds that hold glucose molecules. So when our body, enzymes and water through hydrolysis, enter and start breaking down these bonds, then our body can accept, or by breaking down the bonds, the glucose molecules would be released into the blood. So let's say this is blood. So now glucose molecules appear one by one. So our body, by breaking down, by digesting this carbohydrate, releases energy by breaking down these bonds. Even to break down these bonds, we still need to use energy. To produce energy, we need to use energy. However, so when we break down these bonds, we release glucose molecules and we also release energy. So also energy is being released. So now we have this energy. And our body is able to harvest this energy. So we can use this energy later on to build something. And then if our body needs to build something from simple molecules, let's say simple molecules, and we need to go to build something more complex, then this energy would be used. This energy would be used to create these bonds here again. I don't want to get in very small details, but that's basically what happens when we're digesting food. When we break down big molecules into small molecules, we break down these bonds that have energy stored in them. These are energy yielding bonds. So when our body separates molecules, energy is there, energy is being released, our body grabs this energy or harvests this energy, so this energy could be used when we need to build something. So this process is called catabolism, to break down, and when we go in the opposite direction, it is anabolism. We will discuss catabolism and anabolism in our next lecture. So obviously there are different types of forms. Chemical energy stored in bonds of chemical substances, that's what I just explained. So that's the chemical energy that is stored here. Electrical energy results from movement of charged particles. Another example would be, let's say there is a sodium chloride. We put sodium chloride in a solution of water, and then the energy would be released, and then you have sodium chloride by itself, because this salt molecule dissociates it dissociates in the solution, in the water. So now we can call this electrolytes, now because these elements now can conduct electricity. Or when our nerves are firing, or when they conduct electrical signal from one point to another, that's another example of electrical energy. So the elements that make up matter, there are lots of them. However, the most important ones that we're going to concentrate on are this. So this make up most of our body. So this first four, most common, make up 96% of our body. That makes the rest, and then there are some other traces. So I want you to remember nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen, because they are important. So I want you to remember nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. So calcium and phosphorus we need for bone health, for muscle contraction, and nerve cell conduction. We're going to look at this in the muscular system. Also, we need sodium, that also participates in this two processes: muscle contraction, nerve cell conduction. But altogether, sodium and chloride we need for water balance. We're going to look at that later. So these common elements, right? Oxygen, component of both organic and inorganic products or molecules. Carbon and hydrogen are component of all of the organic molecules. So if you look in the molecule and you find carbon and hydrogen together, it means that it is an organic molecule. So if you look, let's say, at carbohydrates, right, sugars, right? If this is the molecule of sugar, there's carbon, 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 carbon. Let's say there's oxygen, there's like hydrogen. So carbon and hydrogen, it is an organic matter. So if you look, let's say, at amino acids, right? So let's say nitrogen here. So they have this R group. So they have carbon and hydrogens, let's say. So carbon and hydrogen, it's an organic matter. So if you look at fatty acids, so fatty acids, they have like carbons and hydrogens. So it is also organic matter. So carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, products that we consume, that we get them from plant products and we get them from animal products, they are organic matter. So we consume organic matter. We use this organic matter as a materials for our body to rebuild us. So we are what we eat. So we are organic matter. We eat organic and we are organic. Also, we obviously consume inorganic, like minerals, for example. Vitamins would be organic. Minerals are inorganic. And nitrogen, a component of all proteins and nucleic acid, right? Proteins are making the nucleic acid, DNA and RNA are made out of the proteins. Obviously, actually, the entire body is made out of the proteins. So there are 92 naturally occurring elements. Natural 26 found in living organism. This is the common. 9 make up the remaining 4: bone health, fluid balance, and so on. So this is not that important slide, right? So I would never ask anything from here. So there are some other elements that also make up our body, right? So the big ones are calcium and phosphorus. It's our bone, right? It's our skeleton. Also, again, we need them for muscle contractions and for especially calcium and sodium, we need for muscle contractions and nerve cell conductions. So the calcium, bone health, I'm only gonna underline important things. Phosphorus, part of calcium phosphate salt in bones and health. So basically calcium balances the phosphorus, and phosphorus vice versa balances the calcium. And we need vitamin D to enhance absorption of calcium. But the thing is that if in our body there is too much of calcium, then our bones is going to be very strong, and this is not a good thing because the bones would be very brittle, so it would be very easy to break them. But if we have too much of phosphorus, so the bones are going to be very soft, so it's also going to be very easy to break them. So that's why we need proper amount of calcium and proper amount of phosphorus, so they would balance one another. So usually that's what happens in our body. Our body tries to get to the equilibrium point. So there's also magnesium that kind of stabilizes this. present in bone. So this one, and this one are bone health. Potassium and sodium together, right? We need it for fluid balance. We need it for fluid balance. You will see, right? So if you remember from chemistry, so sodium gets out of the cell, potassium gets into the cell, or the sodium-potassium pump that balance the fluid between compartments, one compartment, another compartment, cellular, intravascular, interstitial, in between. So these molecules constantly in the move, so they are responsible for fluid balance. So the potassium not only important for fluid balance, but it's also important for conduction on the nerve and impulses, contraction. But we usually look at sodium and calcium, but potassium is also there. Sulfur component of proteins. We're not going to discuss this, but if you know what antioxidants are the molecules that detoxify our tissues. So cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbages, they have sulfuric compound, so they are important. I do recommend to consume broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbages, asparagus on daily basis. You don't have to consume them together, but maybe today Brussels sprouts, tomorrow. It's like half a cup. Like half of this cup, it would be enough for sulfuric compound, and there are some other minerals. They will prevent oxidative stress on our cellular tissue. By saying tissues, cells. Tissues are made from cells. So the chloride is important for keeping us with the proper pH level, so we would not be too basic or too acidic. So the chloride helps with that. So the magnesium is a bone health and cofactor in more than 200 metabolic reactions. Where can you get magnesium? Magnesium you can get from a lot of products, nuts, seeds, and grains, basically. So if you're thinking, well, I need vitamins, I need to go to the store and start getting vitamins and minerals. Well, we're looking at minerals right now, and you need minerals, and you're thinking, well, I'm gonna go to the store, I'm gonna get those minerals, I'm gonna take them. Nuts, seeds, legumes, grains, they have everything, so that's all you need to consume. You don't have to go to the store and buy supplements. So if you think the supplement is better than actual food, you're wrong. Iodine, needed to make functional thyroid hormone, everybody knows that. And iron, we need iron for a lot of things. Blood is number one. Transportation of oxygen, part of the hemoglobin molecule. Hemoglobin molecule. Hem plus protein called globin. So, and this molecule, hemoglobin molecule, transports oxygen, removes carbon dioxide, brings nutrients to our tissues, removes waste. So, important. Component of hemoglobin, which transports oxygen within red blood cells and some enzymes. So this is just like a basic overview of the common, but this I cannot say major overview of common elements that are part of our body. This is like a reminder, you should know that, right? So atoms, everything that you look on periodic table has the structure. It's just the number of neutrons, protons, and electrons. So within the element, we have a nucleus, like a heart of an atom. So we have inside, right, neutral neutrons, we have positive protons, and we have electrons, negative electrons that are orbiting, and other atoms, molecules can steal these electrons. The electrons could be shared or they could be transferred. By stealing, I'm saying transferred. So number of positive protons, 2 of them, is balanced by the number of negative electrons, also 2 of them. So the atoms are electrically neutral. Protons and neutrons make up the actual weight or mass of an atom, of an element. And electrons, their weight is insignificant. However, they determine molecules or atoms or elements' electronegativity. So let's look at this. So the top number represents atomic number and the bottom number represents the atomic weight. So let's look at this. Atomic number, right? So atomic number of oxygen is 8. Atomic number equals to the number of protons. So we know there's 8 protons in here. In uncharged atom, uncharged meaning that it's not negative or it's not positive, so it's uncharged, it's neutral. Uncharged atom, the atomic number is also equal to the number of electrons. So if it's uncharged, 8 protons equals to 8 electrons, right? So if it would be negative or would be positive, so that would actually fluctuate. The number of electrons would actually fluctuate. The number of protons would stay the same, but the number of electrons would fluctuate. So in an uncharged atom, the atomic number is also equal to the number of electrons. Therefore, number of electrons orbiting the nucleus is equal to the number of protons inside the nucleus. So now let's look at atomic weight. So atomic weight equal to the number of protons and neutrons. So this is protons and neutrons. So how many neutrons do I have? 16 minus 8 equals 8. So this is atomic weight minus protons equals 8 neutrons. That's how you calculate the number of neutrons. So atomic weight includes all of those particles that are part of an atom, including electrons, but electrons are insignificant. So there are 3 major types of chemical bonds. So there's ionic bonds when there's a transfer, covalent bonds when there's a share of electrons, and hydrogen bonds are basically weak bonds. So an ionic bond. So when you say ionic bonds, you know that there is a transfer of electrons. So this is the sodium, right? And this is a chlorine. So sodium and chlorine, when they are combined together, becomes sodium chloride. So the sodium chloride, it is a transfer of electrons. The atom that lost an electron becomes positively charged, because when they lose an electron, right? So there's 11 protons in sodium. Let's say sodium has 11 protons. So if sodium has 11 protons and the sodium is neutral on the periodic table, so the atomic number, so let's say this is atomic number, also should have 11 electrons. So when there is the loss of an electron, now it's 10 electrons, so it's 1 extra proton less electron. So when there is 1 extra proton, so this becomes more positive. So that's why if an atom loses an electron, it becomes more positive. So that's why we put plus sign next to sodium. And then when chloride, right? So when after the transfer, when chloride gets this extra electron, you see it was just 1 here on the outermost shell, 2, 2, 2, right? 2, 4, 6, 7. Now it gets this 1, 8. So it gets that extra electron. So when it gets this extra electron, it becomes more negative. So chlorine, right? It has what? 17 protons. Its atomic number represents 17 protons. So obviously there are 17 electrons, right? 17 electrons, 17 protons. Let's count. So it is 8 here, 8 plus 2, 10, and 10 plus 7, it is 17 protons, right? So it's 17 protons, so it's 17 electrons, but when it accepts or gains that extra electron, now 1 extra. So when it's 1 extra, now we represent this as a negative charge. So chloride becomes 1 extra, 1 negative charge. It's an anion. So that's an ionic bond. So, and the covalent bonds are the most common chemical bonds in our body. So let's look at molecules and compounds. So the molecules are made from the same element or different kind of elements. And compounds composed from 2 or more different elements. That could be very confusing. So let's say that's the molecule and that's a compound, right? So compounds is just the different types of molecule. So the molecule could be made from a different kind of element or from the same. So from the same kind of element, one oxygen plus another oxygen equal O2, right? From the same element, or from a different type of elements together with the same type of element. So it could be like sodium, chloride, different elements, or it could be bicarbonate, right? So CO3, right? So same elements and also different type of elements, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, but also three of them same. And a compound can be composed from two or more different elements, like CO2. Two or more different elements, but not only could be compound, it could also be a molecule because it has the same element. It could be confusing. I don't want to really get into that, giving you a lot of examples, but that's what it is. So let's look closely to these types of mixtures. So solution, homogeneous, formed when one substance, solute, something that enters reaction, let's say sodium, table salt, dissolves in another, in a solvent, and usually present in the greatest amount, right? So substance cannot be distinguished from each other and remain evenly distributed. Suspension, it is a heterogeneous mixture that the particles, they separate from the materials in which they're dispersed, but they are basically, they can settle to the bottom. So the colloid or an emulsion, it is butter, milk, whipped cream, blood plasma, also heterogeneous mixture. Molecules do not dissolve and they not evenly distributed. There is an electric charges that they repelled one another. So this is what we covered so far from the last lecture. So the next Friday for everyone, we will continue from here. And obviously I'm not gonna record the entire lectures from this point. I will only record small short videos where I think the something is important. All right, so see you Friday. Most likely it's gonna be online. I will let you know.